Whenever I stumble upon a really small country, I wonder, why does it exist? With the countless wars that have happened, what have caused these tiny guys to survive? It's one of the many reasons history is just so interesting to me. For today's video, we're going to go over why Andorra exists. I mean, not only is it small, but it's in between France and Spain, two nations notable for conquering a lot of things. You'd think that one of them would have snatched Andorra and kept it, but here it is. Let's go over Andorra's history to find out why it survived. So in between France and Spain, you have the Pyrenees Mountains, which make a nice natural defensive barrier. So when the Moors took control of Spain, the Frankish Emperor Charlemagne needed to control this area. Charlemagne set up the Marca Hispanica, which is essentially a special province that serves as a buffer zone. As time went on, however, the Catholic Church began making new dioceses as they kept driving the Moors out of Spain. Dioceses are almost like provinces of the church. They'll send a bishop to represent that area's group of Catholics. One diocese ended up controlling the area of modern-day Andorra, called the Diocese of Urgell. Charles the Bald also made Urgell a county and appointed a Count of Urgell to protect the area. So you have a Bishop of Urgell and a Count of Urgell. And remember that because that'll be important for later. As the Frankish Empire began to break up and eventually formed France, feudalism got more complicated. As I've explained in other videos, many times a duchy or county that is in theory loyal to a king will occasionally do its own thing anyway. Along came the County of Barthelona, and yes, that's actually how Barcelona is supposed to be pronounced. The County of Barthelona was a Frankish then West Frankish country that eventually decided they were going to go their own way. By 988 AD, the original Carolingian dynasty that controlled West Francia died off and it passed to the Capetian dynasty, which formed France. Barcelona used this as an excuse to officially break away. The count was required to swear allegiance, but the new king had to deal with matters up north and pretty much forgot about it. No, I'm not joking. The County of Barthelona was able to partner up with other counties, including the County of Urgell. They were still separate counties, but Barthelona essentially controlled Urgell's affairs. So thanks to these weird deals, you have several medieval feudalistic loopholes. Were Barthelona and Urgell technically independent? No, but they essentially were. Think of like Taiwan today. Now this ambiguity would cause problems later on thanks to a rising power in Spain called Aragon. No, that's Aragon, not Aragon. There we go. So Aragon's ruler inherited Barthelona, which now had control over it as well as Urgell. But the Bishop of Urgell was worried. All of these changing hands worried about whether he'd actually be protected. So he independently asked for protection of the Lord of Cabouet, a Catalan noble. This isn't a new country, but rather a rich guy who could afford to militarily protect the bishop if needed. But then the Count of Foix, a county in France, inherited Cabouet's properties through marriage. So now you have a French-Catalan joint estate protecting the bishop while the Aragonese were protecting the Count of Urgell. This brings a problem. So how do they solve this complex matter? They actually come to a peaceful and diplomatic conclusion in 1278. The area within the County of Urgell under the church's actual property, because yes, the church also owned feudal property at this time, will become independent and sovereign. They agree that both the Count of Foix and the Bishop of Urgell have a joint co-rulership of this new area called Andorra. The Count of Urgell keeps the rest of Urgell itself. But Andorra would still be subservient to both sides in the form of a tribute to Foix and Aragon consisting of 4 hams, 40 loaves of bread, and some wine. Now, if you think the complicated stuff is over, you're wrong. In 1472, the Count of Foix became the King of Navarre. So now Navarre's king is the co-prince, but then King Ferdinand V of Aragon married Queen Isabella of Castile to form the Kingdom of Spain. Aragon was still technically a kingdom, just a kingdom within a kingdom. Eventually Queen Isabella died, so Ferdinand remarried Germaine of Foix. In 1512, Spain invaded Navarre to try and conquer it. The area of Navarre north of the Pyrenees Mountains remained outside of Spain's control, but since Navarre co-controlled Andorra, it got annexed again. Although they left the next year and Navarre got co-princedom again. So even though the Spanish kings still called themselves kings of Navarre along with the dozens of other titles, Navarre was still there, just way smaller now. In 1530, Charles I of Spain, also known as Charles V of the Holy Roman... Darn it, feudalism, quit making my brain hurt! Anyway, Charles decided to end the matter, and in 1530 they made peace, keeping the parts of Navarre that they took, but Navarre kept the tiny part north of the mountains and the co-control over Andorra. The King of Navarre, Henry III, in 1589, inherited the throne of France, and became Henry IV of France. So now the Bishop of Urgell, under Spanish protection, and the King of France were co-rulers of the independent and sovereign Principality of Andorra. Got all that? Good, because I can't take any more royal titles and Roman numerals. This gave Andorra a special advantage, though. Since both France and Spain got tribute from Andorra and essentially co-controlled it, they had no reason to fight over it. France and Spain were both powerful rivals with each other, but fighting over Andorra was just kind of silly. So Andorra was able to enjoy its independence and peace until the French Revolution. One of the things the French Revolution did that a lot of people don't realize is that it ended feudalism in France. We like to imagine that feudalism somehow died out in late medieval times and got replaced with an absolute monarchy in France like the rest of Europe. And while that's kind of true, it's not fully true. Feudalism still very much existed in France as late as 1789, which is kind of weird to think about. In 1793, the revolutionary government said the Andorra deal was lame feudalism, and so they decided to get rid of it and renounce their suzerainty over Andorra. Andorra didn't like this upset of the balance, and so they were worried that Spain would just flat out take full control now. So they petitioned Napoleon when he took power to reverse this. Napoleon shrugged and said, why not? And so France is now back in co-control of the country. But then Napoleon invaded Spain and actually annexed Andorra along with Catalonia in Spain in 1812. However, as we all know, Napoleon lost. So Spain got its title in Andorra back, and since the French monarchy was restored, they got their title back too. Since then, the second co-prince title went from the French king to the French presidency to the French Emperor Napoleon III, back to the French presidency again, and when Spain had its civil war in the late 1930s, they were worried that Andorra might be annexed by Francisco Franco's forces. So France occupied Andorra until 1940, when France fell to Germany. Hitler liked Franco, so he saw no reason to invade Andorra or anything and just left it alone. With France being liberated in 1944, it's been at peace. In 1993, Andorra became a parliamentary democracy, but kept the co-prince titles but with reduced powers. So as you can see, Andorra survived because of a lot of loopholes, food, and a convenient situation that mostly prevented war over it. It also shows how feudalism changed everything and made it much more complicated than it needed to be, of which you can still see the effects today. So that was the history of Andorra, and I'm Emperor Tigerstar, and I'll see you guys next time.